Good afternoon and welcome to the SAISD School Board Candidate Forum. My name is Dalia Flores Contreras and I am the Interim CEO for City Education Partners. And with the May 1st election around the corner and early voting starting on April 19th, we wanted to make sure and elevate a really important candidate race that's going to show up on this year's ballot. San Antonio Independent School District has 7 board members and 4 of those seats are up for re-election. It is our goal that today's conversation will give you the information that will be helpful to you to inform your vote. Today's conversation was made possible through a strong collaboration with the Boardroom Project, with City Education Partners, with Teach for America, Latina Vote, LatinxNoise, and Leadership SAISD. And we are so excited that today's conversation is going to elevate student voice. We have students from Cass Tech, from the Advanced Learning Academy, and from the SAISD Student Coalition that are going to be asked tonight because our students really care about who the candidates are and what they believe. And to get us started in today's conversation, Salena from the Boardroom Project is going to be presenting to us a little bit about the importance of school boards, the role of school boards. And so without further ado, I want to pass it over to my hermana and the amazing leader and founder of the Boardroom Project, Salena Guipzot.
Thank you, Dalia. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I am, as Dalia mentioned, Salena Santibaniez Guipzot, the founder and board chair for the Boardroom Project. Boards have become more relevant and people are becoming more aware of the importance of not only a board of directors, but the decisions that they make. Whether that's corporate boards, nonprofit boards, commissions in our very own city, and of course school boards are no exception. So for individuals living in San Antonio and are not familiar with the history, school boards are a part of our history and culture, just like chicken on a stick during Fiesta, which I know everybody's missing right about now. You only have to look to our neighbors in the west from Edgewood to see how a school board and the walkout of 1968 made such an instrumental impact on our local community and really across the country when it comes to Mexican American equal rights and having equal education in the school board. Had that group of 400 students not walked out that day on 1968, I'm not sure if we would be here as a city and certainly as an education community. So we appreciate those that have come before us, but most importantly, those that are here today. Issues that board members take on are some of the most important issues that you'll face or hear from, whether you're a student at SAISD, a parent, or even an education advocate, right? Someone who really supports the school and education system and realizes the importance and impact it has on our city as a whole. As a former SAISD school student myself, going to Wheatley Middle School, Sam Houston, as well as Edison, I understand the issues are as relevant as they are today. As a student, I grew up homeless and having to transition from house to house, home to home, couch to couch. It was an issue that had I known I could have taken that to the school board, something that I would have fought for today. We have over 8,000 students in SAISD that are houseless and in transition today. So issues like homelessness, support, education support, financial support, whether those community partnerships, budgets, these are all areas in which your school board trustees will speak and discuss on, not only in this campaign, but future campaigns to go. Like Dalia mentioned, there are 7 districts, single-member districts in SAISD, 4 of them which are up for seats, and so you'll hear from them today. But know that those individuals, they are 4-year terms. So if you start as a freshman, your candidate or the individual of your school board trustee will be there until your senior year. So that impact that they're having and the information, the decisions that they are voting upon will impact your student for that day as well as the rest of their career in high school. So know that school boards are just as vital as any other local election, if not more. Education is key to our city moving forward and certainly key to opportunity for all of our students. I want to thank you. And now I have the pleasure of turning it over to our two moderators this evening, which this is my second time just this year alone introducing Andrea Vocab Sanderson and our other co-moderator, Melanie Mendez Gonzalez. I'm excited to turn over to them, and you'll hear from them just right now.
Thank you, Salena, and welcome, viewers. We are so excited that you could join us for this very important conversation. We are going to ask a series of questions, both from the community and from the students of SAISD. We're thrilled that we have students from the Advanced Learning Academy, CAS Tech, and the students from the SAISD Student Coalition. It is our hope that this conversation will inform your vote as we near early voting on April 19th. Candidates, we have a lot of questions for you that we're ready to engage in. We ask that you keep your answers to a minute, sometimes a minute and a half. We will let you know when your time is up. And we ask that you follow our guidance so that we can hear from each candidate that's here tonight. Other than that, let's treat each other with respect and kindness, and remember that we're all here for the children of SAISD.
Greetings, I'm Andrea Vocab Sanderson. I'm going to be introducing the beautiful candidates of SAISD Board. I wish you the best as you move forward. From District 1, we have Steve Lecholop and Sarah Sorensen. From District 3, we have Judit Vega. From District 4, we have Arthur Valdez and Luke Amphlett. From District 7, we have Ed Garza and Yasmin Parra Codina. Remember those names when it's time to vote.
So let's get started with the first question. We have a video from the students.
Hello, my name is Xavier James. I am a junior going to CAS Tech. And what would be your top 3 priorities as a member of the school board?
So let's get started with you, Steve, if you'll lead us off, and we'll go around and answer that question.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Lecholop. I'm a former teacher, a parent of an SAISD student, and for the last 8 years, I've had the great honor of serving as the school board representative for District 1 in SAISD. We love in SAISD hearing from our students. We try to elevate student voices anytime that we can, and so I'm so thankful that our students are participating in this forum today. The young man asked a great question. Priorities is something that as a school board we talk about all the time. The first priority, especially given what's happened over the last year, is focusing on recovery from COVID-related issues. What we know is that many of our students have not only suffered from COVID-related learning loss, but also have issues related to various other health and household COVID traumas. In SAISD, our goal is to provide as many supports as possible to our students and our families. That includes increasing mental health services, providing a broader spectrum of services by our counselors, and also partnering with important community partnerships to bring other resources to our students and to our families at our campuses. That's priority number 1. Number 2, we're going to continue to put student achievement and students at the forefront in every decision that we make. There is no conversation that we have in SAISD that does not begin and end with how does this impact students? And I intend to keep it that way if I'm reelected to the board.
Thank you, Steve. We'll go with your first 2 priorities. We appreciate it. And we want to hear from Sarah Sorensen.
Yes, thank you. Yes, my name is Sarah Sorensen. I am also a parent in the district and an educational justice advocate. My 3 priorities are, first, to increase public engagement and involve the public and the community in decision-making in the district. One piece of that would be having a public budgeting process so that community members can identify their budget priorities, and we can shape our most important policy document that we decide as a board based on the feedback and the information that we get from the community. Another priority is to create democratically controlled community schools with wraparound services that will serve all of the students' needs and that are tailored to the communities and the neighborhoods that they live in. So that's a second priority, and there's actually quite a bit of funding that's coming nationally to support the creation of community schools. Finally, I think fully implementing the Student Bill of Rights with student control, and also looking at creating a parent and caregiver Bill of Rights and giving parents and caregivers the ability to shape that document. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Judit?
So my name is Judit Vega, and I am a parent and public health professional and community advocate and organizer. And my top 3 priorities, because I have worked for many, many years, nearing 20 years, deeply in community, directly with individuals and families that are most affected. And right now, our families are in crisis. And so I would immediately work to ensure the basic needs of students and families. Our students and families, especially within the East Side and West Side neighborhoods, are experiencing a lot of loss, have experienced a lot of illness, economic insecurity via increasing violence. Housing and food are basic needs, and those are all at risk. And so I would immediately assess those basic needs within the community. Secondarily, I would kind of work with the community and with the children and families to kind of redefine how we look at academic success into a more holistic metrics. The state comes down and brings certain metrics, and we follow, our district leadership has followed that. And, certainly we cannot go against what the state does because of funding, but we can be an activist board and really kind of push back. As a community organizer, what I've seen is organizing works when you have our constituencies in the state, which are the parents and the students, raise up and organize, things happen. And so I would really push the district to do that. And then thirdly, because of my deep community work, I am committed to adopting a community schools model, as Sarah said, with wraparound services, because not only, I think there have been efforts in the district to do that before at Wheatley Middle School, and they failed because it missed the community voice.
Thank you so much. We want to move on to our District 4 candidates, and we'll start with you, Arthur.
Okay. Good evening. I have visited Cass Tech many times, and that is one of the top schools in SAISD. So thank you for that great question. The SAISD team of 8, superintendent and school board, developed an ambitious 5-year goals to 2025 to improve student achievement across the district. The goals included the following: increase students attending high-quality schools for campuses rated at accomplished or higher, ensure proficiency of students in reading and math for lower grades, increase the percentages of high school students earning college credit, and meeting TSI, SAT, SAT, college-ready performance. The percentage of students graduating college-ready rose from 10% in 2015 to 42%, with more than half of all graduates now attending 4-year colleges or universities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Luke?
Thank you. My name is Luke Amphlett. I'm a teacher at Burbank High School. My 3 priorities would be authentically centering student voice, which means not tokenizing students, but centering them at the decision-making table when decisions are made. I liked Steve's mention of the fact that he asked the question, how does this impact students? I think instead we need students to be asking the question, how does this impact us? And making decisions about the direction of the district themselves. Secondly, I think we need to deal with the enormous individual and collective trauma that our families, our communities, our students especially have been going through during this time. The central component of the next year must be rebuilding the emotional, physical, mental health of our communities. And academics can only be built on that foundation. And then thirdly, we need to completely shift the priorities of our district away from the dehumanizing standardized testing that defines the life of our schools and towards an authentic academic achievement which is culturally relevant and sustaining, that extends far beyond the standards that Texas asks for our students, and that is authentically college ready, not just hitting metrics like things like TSI.
Thank you, Luke. Ed Garza?
Well, thank you. My commitment to SAISD and really our city, having served not only as a neighborhood association president, a city council person, as mayor, and now having the honor to serve the 3 terms on the San Antonio School Board, is to break the generational cycle of poverty. That's why I'm committed to education. My wife has been a public education teacher for 29 years, and so collectively, we want SAISD to become and transform to a national model school district where all students graduate and become contributing members of our society and our community. National model, first, we have to return students back to school safely. That's the top priority. As was said earlier, that includes not only the things that are obvious, like health and making sure students are tested regularly and vaccinated, but also the social emotional support. Second, the academic plans for all of our students must be implemented in a way that engages our families and continues to incorporate the feedback from our schools. And finally, it's listening, continuing to listen to our community, not only our families in the district that are attending the schools, but all of our taxpayers in our community. We have many families that choose not to send their children to SAISD, but they must be engaged as well, because we're really one community that must work together, again, to break that cycle of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Yasmin.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Yasmin Parra, Codina, and I'm the candidate for San Antonio ISD for District 7. And 3 of my main priorities are going to really be focused around our students and our teachers, our community needs. The first one is I am committed to involving all of our stakeholders, including our students and families, and those most impacted by the policies and decisions, and bringing those folks on part of our decision making for our district and all campuses in District 7. As a young Latina, Mexican-American woman, I believe it's my responsibility to actively work to change the social conditions that contribute to inequalities of communities of color. And so for that reason, I believe the second priority that I would be focused on is prioritizing academic excellence with cultural curriculum over standardized testing. As an alum of SAISD and having lived experience working with youth of over 15 years with international families and working with government and local grassroots organizations and communities, I believe that we need to focus on this cultural curriculum. We need to be engaging in what our students are going to their multiple backgrounds.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're about to go to a next question, and after that question, Yasmin, you'll be the first one to answer after this question. So we're going to go to another student question.
Hello, my name is Kaya Cleveland, and I'm a junior from Cass Tech High School. I was wondering what was one good thing the school district or school board has done that is good, and maybe something else that is bad that they've done.
So if after you hear answers from your fellow candidates, if you need the question repeated, let us know. And Yasmin, we'll start with you on that one.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, so the question was a school board decision that was that I agree with, and then something that I would like to see improvement on. So for me, I do agree that the SAISD board is going to be looking at pay raises for next year. I really do think that that should have been prioritized for our employees, of looking at retention bonuses for this current year during the whole pandemic. That really should have been priority. And Other districts did receive retention bonuses, and we really needed to have focused those frontline workers, which are our teachers and our educators, our bus drivers, our custodians, and our food service workers. I do agree that SAISD did have the most cautious COVID reopening plan, but that was also a push from our teachers and our students and our communities. And so we really should have been a little bit, should have followed the Metro Health guidance a little bit more and switched to fully remote during the height of the winter surge. We did see a lot of issues going on with COVID overlapping with the winter crisis. And a central issue also that I believe is mental health, that the SAISD Student Coalition did bring up as a recommendation to the board a few years ago before COVID, and now we see that if that had been implemented beforehand, then we would have had a little bit more framework for that work.
Thank you so much, Yasmin.
Thank you.
And we're going to go over to Ed from District 7.
I believe the response that the school district demonstrated to our pandemic was remarkable. To see our schools, our campus workers, our teachers, our administrators, everybody pulled together during a very difficult and challenging time really put SAISD at a national model level. Not only in technology, we had 35,000 devices purchased by the end of March. We had curbside meals that even non-SAISD students were able to benefit from because it's, again, the priority are all children in our community. We had an incredible response in COVID testing and the distribution of the vaccine. So that's clearly where SAISD has done a remarkable job. Where SAISD can do better, we have gone from one of the lowest performing school districts in the state of Texas now to a B-rated school district. Some would say that's a transformation, but our commitment is to be a national model. We want all of our schools to be nominated for blue ribbon status like the Young Women's Leadership Academy or Travis Early College High School. So that's where we can do better. We can go to an A-rated designation that not only speaks of performance metrics on academics, but the entire campus community. Thank you.
And we're going to go over now to Luke and hear from you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to agree with the COVID plan. I think that the COVID plan at the start of the year was excellent. I'll echo what Yasmin said. It should have been followed when positivity rates spiked. The Metro Health plan, which was aligned very closely with the SAISD plan, should have been followed, even though it would have been politically inconvenient. I think it would have been a moment where current school board members would have had to choose doing the right thing over their political careers, and we didn't see that, unfortunately. The thing that I strongly disagree with at the moment is that during a pandemic, students are being forced to come back to campuses to STAR test. Many of them who've never been to these campuses before, right? New freshmen at my campus pushed back to campuses for STAR testing at a moment when they aren't keen to do it, and the STAR test tells us nothing useful in any way about their learning over the last year. And it's happened through the deliberate withholding of information from parents about what TEA has specified, which is that parents of students who are learning remotely do not have to send them back to campuses for STAR testing. That has been left out deliberately of a script that teachers have been forced to read over the phone to parents to push families back for standardized testing during the most deadly pandemic in 100 years of US history. That's disgraceful. It's a shame. Everybody in a leadership position who has been involved in that decision should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. They have lost all moral and ethical standing.
Thank you for that answer. And we're going to go over to Arthur Valdez to hear from you.
One of the things that that we've seen on the board that SAISD has really done good is that overall student academic achievement has shown significant gains district-wide through more pre-advanced placement courses offered in the middle school years and raising the bar at the high school level. So students take more advanced and dual credit courses for which they can earn both high school and college credit. Students will then have the opportunity to graduate with up to 45 hours of college credit, making for a smooth transition to higher education. More SAID graduates are attending four-year and Tier 1 universities and colleges. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And let's go over now to Judit and hear from her.
So I would have to agree that I was grateful for the district's decision-making in reopening the schools and in actually closing schools immediately. For my family, this year has been very, very difficult. My family, beginning in the end of February of last year, was separated for 5 months during the pandemic because of immigration. So I really actually appreciated the support of the district in being able to keep my children at home remotely during that time. But, you know, just like Luke said, what I have not agreed with is the insistence of the, you know, school administration to put the teachers in a position where remote learners are being pressured to come back to school. This is something, you know, not just for testing, but, you know, those deemed at risk are repeatedly kind of, you know, trying to convince me as a parent to bring my children back. And, you know, even just last week, my fifth graders' teachers called and, you know, kind of tried to convince me to bring him back, and so did the assistant principal. And, you know, given the trauma that my family, you know, every family is making their best decisions for their family, but for our family, we decided to stay home. And I don't agree that the district is not letting parents know the guidance of the state.
Thank you so much, Judith. And now we're going to hear from Sarah from District 1.
Thank you. So the district has been very good at moving through the state accountability system, the new state accountability A through F, and we've moved from a C to a B. We may be in line to get an A. That has come at significant cost to our students. Most specifically, the focus on testing and test performance within our classrooms. And my own experience as a parent of watching my child come back to school remotely this year, struggling to figure out how to connect before having a meeting, one-on-one meeting with a teacher, before having any meaningful interaction with her classmates, was expected to complete the MAP assessment, which is a computerized assessment that is done 3 times a year, and it takes weeks of valuable instruction time away from our students. My nephew is in kindergarten. My sister texted me to say, what is this test he's supposed to do? He can't read. How is he supposed to answer these questions? What is this? Why are we doing this? And can't teachers assess students? Aren't they trained to do this assessment without a computer? And so that is one of the ways that we need to improve. We need to move away from computerized assessments and a focus on standardized testing.
Thank you so much. And now we are going to hear from Steve on this one.
My colleagues have well covered the district's amazing response to COVID. As Mr. Garza pointed out, we have been the most cautious of any district in the county. And contrary to other claims, our district has followed to the letter Metro Health guidelines. We have involved Dr. Wu from Metro Health in every decision that we have made as a district. And we are glad now, as the vaccination rate is increasing, and as the positivity rates are continuing to decline, to be welcoming our students back to our classrooms. I'd like to focus, though, on another decision that the board made that I'm really proud of over the last 5 years. We have increased the school options for students and families. In SAISD, our school board has been committed to creating new school models, but also building up our neighborhood schools with additional programming and magnet programming opportunities so that every student and family in our district can find a best fit school. We have exclusive choice options now that any student in the district can apply to, and those schools have proven to be incredibly popular and are seeing students do amazing things. But also we've seen improvement in all of our neighborhood schools. We have expanded vastly dual language programming, which research says is the best way for English language learners to learn. It's now in over 60 of our 100 campuses, and our goal is to continue expanding that particular program. One area that we can improve is to continue focusing on the career and college readiness for our graduates.
Thank you, Steve, so much. And it's really been great to hear from you, not only as educators, but as parents and community members. We do have another video that we're going to go to before our next question.
Hi, I'm Ben Gonzalez, a senior at Cass Tech High School, and I'm wondering, how can the board be accessible to all members of the community, including students?
So we're going to let Arthur start this round.
As a board member, my goal is to always keep the students and the community's best interests in mind. I often visit all of the schools in my district and have good working relationships with principals, staff, and teachers. They know I support them and can contact me anytime and whatever is needed for their schools. I often get invited from neighborhood associations, school principals to participate in various events or to be a guest speaker to parents, teachers about district progress. I always take the opportunity to be involved, listen to ideas, opinions, and quickly respond to parents or community concerns. I respond to phone calls and emails from constituents when concerns arise. I have held community town halls for State of the District updates and have met with community groups such as communities and school and public education partners. In fact, April 15th, I will host a town hall at Burbank High School for a district update report and a mini tour of the brand new 21st century school at Burbank High School, being built and not yet completed, but will be ready for students on January the 1st of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. And we'll hear next from Luke.
Thank you so much. So I believe that public schools belong to the people, and the people's schools should manifest the people's will. I think that the decisions of the board over the last 8 and probably more years have failed to do that. And I think that our commitment should be seeing education as the practice of democracy. We have a saying, nothing about students without students, nothing about school workers without school workers, nothing about our families without our families. And we should engage substantively in a reframing of representation in our district so that school board members are no longer making decisions for our communities, for our students, for our families, but making them in collaboration with those people, and then are delegated to go to the boardroom and carry out the people's will. There should be no disconnect between what the people in our communities want as their substantive priorities and what the board does. And yet we see that students, educators, community members, families are systematically excluded from decision-making in our district. We should change everything about the way we engage with families, with school workers, and with students.
Thank you, Luke. And we'll go over to Ed Garza.
Engaging students, we must go to the students, and that's not necessarily meaning going during the school day, but really being visible, being accessible, attending marching band competitions, going to soccer games, football games, dance competitions, cheer competitions, art contests at the middle school and elementary level, spelling bees, principal coffees, the list goes on. And so it's really an incumbent on us as elected officials to engage in a way that students see us as a non-threatening figurehead. It's not just about going to a board meeting and voting. Probably 90% of my time as a trustee is being out in the community, engaging with our students and families. I hold a monthly forum for the last 12 years that brings all of our feeder school leaders, including student leaders, to the table to have conversations. It's been via Zoom the last year, but we're eager to get back to doing that in person.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Yasmin?
Yes, thank you. So yeah, the school board has been accessible to some people and some groups, but not to majority of all the students and all the communities. One way that I see an improvement is the school board meetings themselves. We've had teachers pressured to attend in-person teacher faculty meetings, but yet the school board meetings, like that was just mentioned, they continue to meet in the safety of their own homes. there was no space or open dialogue for community involvement, and community members weren't able to engage in the real conversations at these board meetings. So we did see other districts work around the issues, and we're able to figure it out. And accessible, what I would bring to the school board as a advocate for students is, I am proud to have the endorsement of the SAISD Student Coalition that I mentioned earlier. They're a group of our youth that has been organizing in coalition in SAISD. And I also have the endorsement of the group called the Texas Youth PAC, which is a statewide group of college students that endorse candidates statewide. And so this is some of the organizing that I'm working with, as well as groups from St. Mary's University, because District 7 does cover a little bit of area into St. Mary's University area. So this is what I would bring to the school board, bring in our students because they know what they need as well.
Thank you, Yasmin. If we could hear from Sarah.
Yes. Yeah, there are 4 of us who are running on a platform that's called The Schools Our Students Deserve. And central to that platform is engaging and involving community in the decisions that we make. And all of us come from a community organizer background. We know how to bring folks together to create processes and space where people can get information and make decisions and hash stuff out. So there's just almost a natural commitment. It's who we are. It's in our bones of how we would run a school board and how we would engage with our community, knowing that we're not experts in the sense that we don't, we're not coming in with this is how we should do this. It's recognizing the folks who are in our schools, the students, the school workers, and the families who are engaging with the schools are the experts in their experience and are going to bring us the information and the wisdom that will shape the decisions that we make as board members.
Thank you, Sarah. And next we'll hear from Judit.
Yes, I've spent my career as an advocate for children and families in SAISD neighborhoods, and I am a community organizer, so I know that not all students and families are engaged in school campuses or in school activities, so I think that as Mr. Garza said, it's important to be present and to be visible throughout the school activities. It's also important to be out in the community. So, to be where they are. And they are also, at parks, at churches, so I think that we in the district have to kind of cast a broader net in terms of our community engagement and kind of take an organizing approach as far as thinking of like the socio-ecological model of how our families live, where do our families go, which are the best ways to engage, those students that need the most attention, frankly. A lot of our neighborhood associations, a lot of our, very involved students, they're very high achieving and high performing already. I've worked in violence prevention before, youth violence prevention, and to reach certain kids and certain families, it takes those most vulnerable, it takes, a different approach. And I think it's important that we take that approach of meeting people where they really are.
Thank you, Judit. And Steve, if you'll round us out again.
As a former teacher, I have unique insights into how amazing our students can be. They're smart, they're thoughtful, and when we have high expectations for students, one thing I know is that they always live up to them. That includes in providing input on important and weighty issues. I want to give one specific example of how I have and will continue to engage students in our policy making as a school board. 2 years ago, I proposed the district creating a student bill of rights. This was in response to reviewing the SAISD discipline policy that I felt was far too punitive and didn't really have our students' best interest in mind. What we did as a district then is we formed a student committee representative of multiple schools and multiple students from schools to provide insights into what that Bill of Rights should say. We asked the students to tell us what the enumerated rights that they desire should be. After engaging with our students with no thoughts or without pushing them in any one direction, we were able to come up with a document that we think of as a living document that will continue to change as our students continue to provide input. That's one example of student involvement in our decision making that, if reelected, I will ensure continues as we consider other weighty policies.
Thank you so much, Steve. So our next question we'll start with Judit. And so we don't have a video, so I'll ask that question. In Texas, the Texas State Board of Education has a lot of control on local school district policies. Please share what you believe the SAISD school board could realistically do to ensure educational equity for all students and improve student achievement, ensuring everyone who graduates is college and career ready. And please provide specific examples.
Well, I think it already kind of, as I mentioned before, I am an organizer and I am from the community. So I believe in always centering community voice and decision making, and that, I know working in government for so many years that many times our elected officials and our government officials don't necessarily follow the will of those most vulnerable, or that, have the best interests at heart and the engagement. And so I saw this past school year that happened. TEA announced that, all students who were remote learners were going to have to come in and take the STAR test. And I saw that, families and students across the state really pushed back against that in a very organized way. And so the district, the state kind of changed course and, changed their guidance and did not make it a requirement to come in to take the STAR, except for, juniors and seniors in high school. And so I think that, parents and constituencies of public education, they do not realize their power, and I think that it's unfortunate just to say as school district leadership, oh, I'm sorry, that's a state decision, that's nothing we can do. If we really want to advocate for what is best for our children and families, we will organize, we will advocate. We cannot organize, but we can advocate.
Thank you, Judit. And next we'll hear from Ed Garza.
College and career readiness has been one of the main reasons that our school district has elevated so quickly in the last 5 years. Specifically in terms of college readiness, we just saw data today, because now students not only on the SAT or ACT scoring college ready score, but now through the TSI exam can also achieve a college ready designation. And SAISD now has caught up with the state of Texas. We were lagging behind by 15, 20 percentage points. We're now pushing to 43, 45% of our graduates, like the state of Texas, being college ready. In terms of career readiness, the same example. Our career technology education programs have expanded. Again, they must pass their exams to be certified. And so we have an exit, a culture for college and career readiness for exams and testing that our students must be prepared for, and that begins at the pre-K level, and we must prepare them for that as they get into their senior year and graduate on into college or the career pathways.
Thank you, Ed. Yasmin?
Yes, so thank you. Yeah, I truly believe that school board members should have the community's best interest. And with my background in Mexican American Studies, I know any graduate from that program at ETSA is going to say that civil rights and student activism goes hand in hand. And we see that social change happens when students are involved. And so student rights, student activism, education, advocacy, all of that leads to leadership. And so I am part of my part of my priority is really ensuring that our families are not being hurt by these policies, most impacting our communities of color. And so being an elected public official means that you push those boundaries and you advocate for the needs and concerns. And that is for all of our students, all of our teachers and our educators and our families, and every community member that we serve.
Thank
right?
you. Thank you, Yasmin.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go on over to Arthur.
I feel that ensuring that kids are college and career ready is a silver bullet for our city's future. We are doing a terrific job on this and will continue to improve. Our P-TECH schools are widely seen as innovative models across the state. Our industry-led CAST models are great game changers for kids. It also allows us to bring industry experts to pair with our kids and give them an insider's view into what a high-wage, high-skills career feels like. This is the chance our kids need to have a strong future for their families in our city. It's how we move our city out of poverty. We were first in the city and Bexar County to offer industry-focused P-TECH programs. Under the P-TECH model, within 46 years, students will be able to earn a high school diploma, an industry-specific associate's degree, industry certification, and complete work-based training through internships, apprenticeships, or other job training programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. And we'll hear from Luke.
Thank you. So I think it's the responsibility of elected officials to explore the limits of their power. And I think you only find out about the limits of your power when you try to push the boundaries of it. And we hear a lot from elected officials at every level that they don't have the power to push back, especially on the Republican politicians in Austin, right, when it suits them. But at other times we hear that they want a lot of credit for their brave, transformational leadership. And I think when the chips are down, we need leaders who are going to fight for us, who are going to stand up to things when they're wrong, and who are going to see what happens. And I think people who are in our elected officials' positions should be leading movements that transform our schools, movements for civil rights in our schools, which are absolutely the opposite of a lot of the decisions that are made by TEA. Substantially, because I know you asked for specifics, we need to talk about reparations. We need to talk about reparations for Black and Indigenous students. It is a conversation that is starting around the country. It is a conversation that should be led by our Black and Indigenous families, students, and community members. But we need to really think beyond a really superficial version of equity that says that test scores are what our kids need and easily gameable college and career readiness metrics are what our kids really need to succeed. And we need to grapple with 500 years of settler colonialism, slavery, racism, segregation, and subtractive assimilation in our schools. And we need leaders who can do that and who can lead that conversation.
Thank you, Luke. And next we'll hear from Sarah.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I hear this a lot in Texas. I'm not a native Texan, so it surprises me when folks will say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. This is what the state tells localities to do. This is how it works everywhere in the United States under our system. I've lived in blue states and red states. The state issues policies, and localities sometimes have what they call unfunded mandates that they have to carry out with little control. But that doesn't mean there isn't room to push back. Doesn't mean there isn't room to be creative. And I think you draw the line, as the other candidates have said, when it comes to the well-being of our students and our families. We have an obligation to fight for them. And if there are policies that are harming our students, that are harming our families and harming our community, then we have to push back. And it will put us in a vulnerable position. It could be a little bit scary, but it is the right thing to do. It is the moral thing to do. And we have the power, our community has the power. And one thing, you know, I've come out against, you know, standardized testing and the prevalence of STAR in our schools. And folks will say, well, you can't get rid of STAR. Well, you know, not tomorrow, but no one likes STAR in Texas. There are very few parents, there are certainly very few educators, maybe a few administrators who like STAR, but most folks don't. There's no way that we can't get rid of a policy that everybody hates. It will take some organizing, it will take some advocacy, but it is possible, and it's time for us to dream big and do what's right for our students and our communities.
Thank you, Sarah. And once again, Steve finishes out in this question.
The question was specifically about equity, tangible, equitable outcomes that the district can ensure. I have two examples. First, we've conducted a study over the last few years about the equitable allocation of resources to our specific schools within our specific school district. What we found is because of legacy issues, the funding on a per school basis isn't equitable. So over the last year, we have been developing a student-based budget program that will roll out over the next school year to ensure that our schools are getting the local resources and dollars that they deserve based on the needs of their specific student population. The second issue I want to talk about is certifications, and specifically preparing our students to succeed after they graduate from high school. We know that not all of our students will go to college, and what we want is for our students to have high quality choices after they graduate, whether their path is to college or whether it's to the workforce. What we have focused on in SAISD over the last few years is greatly expanding the number of certifications in high-wage industry jobs that our students have access to and can obtain for free based on the instruction that they get in our schools and then passing a test at the end. We have seen an exponential number of our students qualify for these certifications and be able to enter high-wage professions right out of high school.
Thank you,
That
Steve.
is going to continue should I be reelected.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you everyone for the answers.
Absolutely. I just commend you all on your transparency and honesty as you answer these questions. I'm going to start this next question with Luke from District 4, and this question is for everyone that is going to answer. Please provide an example of an SAISD school board decision that you have agreed with and how that decision was approached. Please provide an example of an SAISD school board decision that you have disagreed with if you were on the board at that time and how you would approach the situation. So something you've agreed with and something you've disagreed with and how you would approach.
Okay, thank you. So.
Oh, and you have 1 minute. I'm sorry, 1 minute.
Okay, I'm going to answer quickly,
Yeah.
and I didn't make notes. So I'm going to take one that Steve brought up. I want to give him props for the Student Bill of Rights. It's a great, potentially transformational policy. I think it demonstrates that you can lead on the school board and you can talk about issues. Unfortunately, it also demonstrates the hollowness of a lot of the discourse, which is very PR-oriented and doesn't transform the life of students in our schools. There are currently 7 recommendations written by SAISD students and a coalition of civil rights organizations from across Texas, just waiting to be implemented by the board, which would actually make the Student Bill of Rights, which I was the only teacher in the committee that created, something that impacted the lived experience of students in our schools. I teach US history. I tell my students, the Bill of Rights, the piece of paper, does not give you your rights. Your rights are won through struggle. What rights are won through enacting those rights that are written on paper in your life. And unfortunately, the Student Bill of Rights has done nothing to transform the lives of students in our schools. So I think it represents the best possibility of our school district in terms of having an idea which can be potentially transformative. And unfortunately, the worst of it, because it is such a superficial and hollow document as it stands at the moment, but is this close to being really, really great. And to be really great, it would just need an authentic engagement with student voice and a civil rights struggle that should be waged in our schools.
Thank you so much. And we're going to go to Ed Garza from District 7.
I really believe that the tone of a school district is set by its elected officials and the superintendent that the board hires to implement the vision, the policy that the elected officials are charged to do. And I think the best decision that I have seen in my 12 years on the board was the hiring of Pedro Martinez. I've served under 3 superintendents, multiple number of school trustees, and I recall my first school board meeting back in May or June of 2009, there was a divided school board. There was distrust, a lack of respect between the superintendent and the trustees, and we went on for years with the divided school board with no clear vision or direction, and it took time to be able to come up with a collective vision. And so I really believe that one of the most challenging decisions, or decisions that I would change, is we went through that selection process and hired someone, and we didn't go through with it, but it turned out to be the best decision with Pedro Martinez. And so I really do believe that the superintendent sets the tone, and it's up to the community, the engagement of the community, to elect individuals that come up with a common vision that moves our district to national model status.
Thank you so much. Judit?
So having worked previously as part of public health with the district, and as a parent, something that I had appreciated was, several years ago, like even beyond 4 years ago, the movement of the district towards addressing social emotional learning in students, because I know that was very important for a lot of the, addressing a lot of the trauma that some of our students have provided, have experienced, and but at the same time, working in youth violence prevention many years ago, I personally knew several students and families who had been really adversely impacted by community violence on the west side, east side, and southeast sides of town. And that same social emotional learning approach was not provided for those families. On the contrary, it was more of like punitive, and any kind of, mention of moving towards a model of restorative justice was not really recognized. I do understand that since that time, things have changed through the organizing of students to push the district to adopt the Student Bill of Rights. So my hope is really that the students who have been most affected by violence in our community will be leading that work, will continue to lead that work.
Thank you, Judit. So now we're going to hear from Arthur on this one, District 4.
When I think one of the best decisions that we made on the board was that when SAISD launched the Master's Teacher Initiative, we were all in agreement to invest in elevating high-achieving teachers to provide additional quality instructional for at-risk students. The district is on track right now to meet the goal of 1,000 master teachers and 200 instructional coaches to provide critical support. Sometimes, though, one of the things that I feel serving on the board is sometimes there is just too much information given to board members at one time to absorb when introduced for approval. And I feel that staff should consider that board has adequate understanding of initiatives before approving, for us to approve those initiatives.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And now we're going to hear from District 7.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry. We're going to go to Steve next. I apologize. Just for the equity of voice, we're going to go down to Steve there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My colleague Ed Garza is absolutely right that the most important job of a school board member is to hire a superintendent. We were incredibly fortunate 6 years ago to recruit and bring to San Antonio a best-in-class superintendent in Pedro Martinez, and that is a vote that of all of my time on the school board, I'm the proudest of. But one of the underrated votes that has allowed our district to really progress is the declaration very early in my tenure on the board. We were one of the first school districts in the state of Texas to vote to become a district of innovation. We did that unanimously, and what that allowed us to do was implement creative and innovative solutions to solve many of our problems. Part of that is empowering teachers and principals to do what they believe is in the best interest of their schools and their school communities. That vote for the District of Innovation has really allowed us to grant the autonomies to our school communities, to our principals and our teachers.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we have to move on to the next one, but Sarah, we want to hear from you on this one, and then we're going to round it out with Yasmin on this one.
Sure. Autonomy sounds fantastic, right? School level autonomy, teacher autonomy. It plays out in this framework as autonomy for principals to make decisions without including teachers, so workday decisions. Teachers used to have a set workday, a set schedule. Anytime that they put in they weren't expected to, they could have time to go home to their families if they needed to. As a parent, I know teachers are at school at 7:30, 7. I see them in the PTA meetings at 8 o'clock at night. They've been there for 13 hours a day. In the past, that wasn't. They had some flexibility. They had a guaranteed school day. They weren't expected to do this extra stuff as part of their schedule. So if they needed to take a child to the doctor, if they needed to take care of this, they had some autonomy and some freedom to take care of their lives. And also the District of Innovation decision, we've seen a lot of chaos and a lot of instability happening as we've operated under this model of moving towards a district of innovation, a district of network schools. We're seeing, neighborhood schools shut down and schools reopened. Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. I know it's a loaded question. I thank you so much for all packing all in these answers. We're going to end with Yasmin for this one.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to take this moment and just give a really big shout out to our teachers and our educators and all of our school workers that have done just an amazing job wearing so many hats and supporting each other right through this really traumatic crisis. And they're really working hard to meet the needs of the social and emotional needs of their communities and of their families and students. And we know that they care about their communities. And again, right, our students are not numbers. Our students are not letter grades. And since we care about our students' health and safety, we care about our teachers and our families. We just have to move away from prioritizing standardized testing and then just call it what it is, right? STAR and standardized testing, is it a biased? It's biased, it's racist, and it hurts our families and communities. And our communities have been pleading to cancel STAR this year. And that was just a first step to approach the needs of our communities. And the students just did not have what they needed to prepare for this test. And this hurts our communities of color, and we need to recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for answering those questions. So now we're going to change it up just a little bit. And instead of going round table, we're going to have one question per each district to answer, and we will go in order. So we will start with District 1 with Sarah Sorensen and Steve, and we will get this question from a video.
Hello, my name is Isabella Garcia. I am a junior at the Advanced Learning Academy, and my question is, do you support the direction that SAISD is currently on? Why or why not?
So we'll start with Sarah, and then Steve Lecholop, you can go after her.
I have concerns about some of the policies that we have made, that our board has made, particularly regarding entering into partnerships under 1882, because that it is an opportunity to reduce the democratic control over our schools. These partnerships give the outside entities significant control over our schools. They give them control over curriculum, potentially control over hiring, school day, class size, and budgeting. And it adds a layer of, it reduces transparency in what's happening at our schools. And when you talk to folks at these schools, parents and workers at these schools, there's a sense that they don't know who's on the board, what the decisions are being made, and although there's additional state dollars that come with these 1882 contracts, they aren't seeing those meaningful material changes on their campus that equates to those dollars. And also, I think it's important to acknowledge that this is a state policy designed to charterize our district, to privatize our public schools. The state has a clear preference for charter schools, and if they can't destroy public schools by enticing children away to charter schools. They will come into the to the districts themselves and charterize them. And so we have to have a critical analysis of what this policy is, and if we're going to use this policy going forward, being strategic and thoughtful and making sure we maintain democratic control of our schools.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Steve?
That's a great question, Isabella. Thank you for raising your hand and your voice and participating and contributing to this discussion. The answer to your question is absolutely yes. Over the last 5 years, SAISD has improved from an F-rated district, one of the quantitatively lowest performing school district in the state of Texas, to a B. When I first started on the board, 38,000 of our students were going to F-rated schools. Now that number is down to 8,000. But our work isn't done. We know we still have a long way to go. And right now, what we have on the school board is an aligned and unified voice that puts students at the front of every decision that we make. That will continue, and we will continue to pursue policies that are proven to improve student outcomes by allowing students and families to find best fit schools, by continuing to close the digital divide, both by partnerships with the community and by giving students access to the internet and access to devices, empowering teachers, empowering principals to do what they believe is in the best interest of you at your school and all the other 48,000 students in SAISD. I absolutely agree with the direction of the district, and I believe fundamentally that if we're allowed to continue the momentum and continue the progress, we can take our B-rated district up to an A, which will mean that student outcomes are improving along with it. Thank you so much for contributing tonight, Isabella.
Thank you so much. So this next question is for District 7 candidates, and it's important to me because I work at Juvenile Detention Center, so I'm interested to hear what you have to say on this one. A student from SAISD Student Coalition asks, what are your plans for the future of police officers on campus? And we'll go to Ed first.
Well, thank you. As mentioned earlier, the school district has transformed its policy related to a transformation from punitive punishment to restorative justice. And it hasn't happened overnight, and it's not happening fast enough. But as an advocate for students that are at risk, that have special needs, that are English learners, that sometimes are misunderstood, I feel that the role of a law enforcement officer or police officer is there to support the school and not be an officer that is taking students out of the campus. We need to keep students in campus, on campus. And if they need support, if they make a bad choice through the social emotional learning policies, there are procedures in place to help remedy the situation in a positive way and provide solutions that keep students on campus and away from the legal system, the court system, and juvenile probation. We've had too many of our students criminalized because of choices and not keeping in perspective that they're kids. And kids make bad choices, adults make bad choices, teachers make bad choices, we all do. And so the place of education should be a safe environment for our students, and I look forward to the day that all of our students are kept on campus for even a bad decision that when they have a bad day, so that we can turn that around.
Thank you so much. And Yasmin, your plan for future police officers?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we need to move away from police involvement in the daily presence and the daily life of our schools and our students. We should close those loopholes that end the routine policing of young people in our schools and move towards authentic, restorative and transformative approaches to student discipline at every campus. And almost no incident that takes place on campuses cannot be resolved by our educators and our social workers and mental health professionals. These are the professionals that know our students. And there's just research that overwhelmingly shows that presence of police officers on campuses and their continued involvement in behavior management and discipline leads to the higher crime rates of criminalization and behavior of our campuses. And this is going to add to student discipline, leads to being reclassified as criminal offenses. So we should really intervene decisively together in our schools to interrupt the school to prison deportation pipeline by ending routine police involvement. These schools and campuses need to be safe spaces for our students and our families and our communities. And we should decide together, democratically, to prioritize our community's needs at each campus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful answers. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to remind everyone that these are student-led questions. So the next question is for District 4, and it is from another student at the SAISD Student Coalition. And they ask, mental health is an overlooked topic in our schools. What is your plan to implement mental health services for students and teachers? So we will start with you, Arthur.
Yes, the district has implemented many regulations to go ahead and do mental health for students and teachers. I know that some of the teachers and some of the staff in the district do visit the houses because of the COVID that's happening right now. They do visit the houses to make sure that the students are okay. The students that do come in, they monitor them to make sure that they are okay as far as mentally, because it has caused a lot of problems as far as the COVID pandemic goes. And that's one of the things that the district is doing right now.
Thank you, Arthur. Luke?
Thank you. Thank you, my friends in the Student Coalition. You're wonderful people. I think fundamentally restructuring our priorities is the thing that we need to do. There isn't a technical fix for this issue, because unfortunately what public schools do is manifest in a geographically specific location the inequities, the punitive nature of American society as a whole. And when we're talking about student mental health, we're talking about things like policing, we're talking about things like discipline, and we're talking about the really slavish devotion to standardized testing and test scores and metrics that Republicans in Austin have decided should be imposed on our students over their emotional health. So we should invest more in authentic mental health supports, but we should also change the way that we engage with students in our classrooms every single day and center authentic social emotional learning with culturally relevant and sustaining pedagogies, because as Dina Simmons tells us, without that, social emotional learning is just white supremacy with a hug. So we need to unpick that. We need to end the conversations about a transformation in our district that isn't about student mental health and wellness. It isn't about creating and producing students who can go into the world full of wonder and critical thought, but is about producing students who can make test scores and are ready for very often menial and subservient jobs in the service industry in San Antonio. And just FYI, you know, the F3B rating, which is a central component of each of the incumbents' platforms for this election, isn't true. Right? The F doesn't exist. I think it's really important for voters to understand that when each of the incumbents talks about an F3B transformation, they're not actually telling the truth, because there is no F. And you should go and look for it. It doesn't exist.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you, Arthur, for both answering that question on such an important topic.
So we're at our last question for this wonderful time together, and we want to acknowledge Leticia Ozuna, who is not here, but she is a candidate from District 3, and she will not be able to answer this question, but we do have a candidate here who can. So to close this out tonight, Judit, Vega, we're going to go to you, and this is the last question, and it also comes from the SAISD Student Coalition, and it follows. Us as students are craving the opportunity to learn more about our cultural history, and we want to see our identity reflected in our education. What is your plan as a candidate to implement this kind of diverse curriculum?
Okay. Yes, I think that's very important, because you know, our students are overwhelmingly students of color and overwhelmingly, you know, are kind of given an education that is very disconnected from their lived experience, both culturally and in their neighborhoods. And I think that, you know, I'm part of this platform that is, you know, feels that it's important to implement a culturally relevant pedagogy, but I've seen that in my own children. I live in a mixed status family. I have a Black child. I have an immigrant, you know, my husband is an immigrant, and my children have really benefited from the enrichment that I've been able to provide, having a background in anthropology and a background in cultural organizing, in terms of understanding people from their community, people throughout history who look like them, who come from the similar cultures that they have. You know, that is when I've seen activation of curiosity and learning and passion in my children. And when they are able to connect that cultural identity on a day-to-day basis, and not just, you know, when it's Black History Month, or not when it's just about, you know, people throughout history who are recognized, but people who have created social movements and social changes that we have seen in our lives today. You know, they've also had the opportunity to hear the oral histories of the lived experience of people in our community who are, you know, from where they grew up, and I think that's also very important and very holistic.
Thank you so much, Judit. So, viewers, we've had some great questions, mostly from these amazing students, and the answers from the candidates. And now we want to give you some information about how and where to early vote from some local organizations. We have this voting information thanks to our partners at Latina Vote and LatinxNoise. And we want to remind you that Election Day is on May 1st and early voting starts on April 19th.
Wow, what an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for joining the SAISD School Board Candidate Forum. Can I just say thank you to all of the phenomenal questions that our students presented tonight. It was such a wonderful experience to have their voice elevated. They are the ones that walk through our halls every day. Their experience and their perspective matters. I'm so incredibly thankful that their voice was elevated. Today would not have been possible without so many incredible partners. Thank you so much to our moderators for facilitating tonight's conversation, to all of our candidates for making the time to come and join us and answer these questions vulnerably, honestly, so that you could be an informed voter. The planning committee that put this together, Teach for America, City Education Partners, the Boardroom Project, Leadership SAISD, Latina Vote, and LatinxNoise all came together to make sure today was possible. And we couldn't close out without thanking our media partners. Thank you so much to KLRN for hosting us and supporting with this amazing conversation. Also to Telemundo and the Essay Report. Thank you for joining us. Remember, May 1st is the election. Early voting starts Monday, April 19th. Get out there and vote. The only thing better than a voter is an informed voter. So thank you for joining today's conversation, and we hope you have a wonderful day.